The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors have been proudly serving the people of this community since 1918. Service is our motto. The poor, the rich, the middle class and all are given the best of care and attention at all times. You have the privilege to select what you want. In your time of need, contact the capable, the competent, and the dependable staff of the J.W. Williams Funeral Home who is genuinely concerned with your care. At J.W. Williams Funeral Home, you are aptly served by the proprietor, president, Deacon Arthur L. Parker, who continues the traditions and values set forth by the past president, Dr. Napoleon Williams. Your announcers for the J.W. Williams Funeral Home Sunday morning program are Deacon Arthur L. Parker, Reverend Isaac H. Owens, Mrs. Calandra Wilkerson Parker, Minister Frankie Harmon, Miss Sandra Johnson, and Deacon Earl Clark, Jr. Thank you and good morning, friends. We come to you this morning to bring announcements, dedications, and songs. We certainly hope that your day may be brighter after viewing our program. The family of Mrs. Thelma Carolyn Lango Smith of Cordele, Georgia. The family of Mr. Arthur Nikitas Whitehead of St. Petersburg, Florida, formerly of Americus, Georgia. The family of Mrs. Asime Stevens Tyson of Americus, Georgia, would like to thank all of their many friends for all of the many kindnesses shown to them during their hours of sorrow and bereavement during the past week. Mrs. Thelma Carolyn Lango Smith, age 72, of 316 West 17th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Monday, October 17th at the Pine Point Hospice in Macon, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Thelma Carolyn Lango Smith was held Tuesday, October 25th, graveside at the Vienna City Cemetery in Vienna, Georgia. Reverend Choice Cobb Sr., pastor of the Free Providence Baptist Church and the Spring Hill Baptist Church, officiated. Survivors include her loving and devoted children, Mrs. Deborah Dawson and her husband, Mr. Russell Dawson of Cordele, Georgia, Miss Monica Daniels and her companion, Mr. Leonard of Perry, Georgia, Miss Kadiria Gaston of Cordele, Georgia, Ms. Laura Daniels of Warner Robins, Georgia, and Mr. Kelvin Daniels of Cordele, Georgia. 14 loving grandchildren, 5 great-grandchildren, a loving sister, Mrs. Geraldine Lango of New York, a beloved brother-in-law, Mr. Frank Howell of Warner Robins, Georgia, a loving sister-in-law, Mrs. Frances Lester of Pinehurst, Georgia, a host of loving nieces and nephews, many cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mrs. Thelma Carolyn Lango Smith, age 72, of 316 West 17th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia. Mr. Arthur Nikitas Whitehead, better known as Nicky, age 50, formerly of Americus, Georgia, died Saturday, October 22nd at the St. Anthony Hospital in St. Petersburg, Florida. The funeral service for Mr. Arthur Nikitas Whitehead, better known as Nicky, was held Saturday, October 29th, in the sanctuary of the Friendship Missionary Baptist Church in Americus, Georgia. Bishop Melvin McCluster, pastor, Reverend Jermaine Harris, and Reverend Norris Harris officiated. The eulogy was delivered by Reverend Courtney Moore. The burial followed at the Staley Memorial Garden in Americus, Georgia. Survivors include his loving mother, Mrs. Gwendolyn Purvis, and her husband, Mr. Virgil Purvis, his loving father, Mr. MacArthur Whitehead, two sons, Mr. Kyrie Whitehead and Mr. Navi Whitehead, a beloved daughter, Miss Lakeria Walker, an adopted son, Mr. Roderick Whitehead, his godmother, Mrs. Bertha Jones of Atlanta, Georgia, two godsons, Mr. Aaron Richardson and Mr. Tyson Richardson, three godsisters, Miss Deidre Barthel, Miss Emily Smothers, and Miss Danielle Wise, his beloved grandchildren, Kyrie Jr. and Christopher Whitehead, and Cassie Whitehead, five aunts, Mrs. Carolyn Hurley and her husband, Mr. John Hurley, Miss Cynthia West, Miss Kathy Kimber, all of Americus, Georgia, Miss Linda Brown of St. Petersburg, Florida, and Miss Maurice Fletcher of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Three uncles, retired Chief Charlie Whitehead Jr. of Kathleen, Georgia, Mr. Tony Whitehead of California, and Mr. Ronald Whitehead of Atlanta, Georgia. His great aunts and great uncles, Mr. Charlie Kimbrough and his wife, Mrs. Barbara Kimbrough of Cocoa, Florida, Miss Abigail Kimbrough, Miss Catherine Kimbrough, and Mr. James West, all of Warner Robins, Georgia. His devoted friends, Mr. Kedrick Collier, Mr. Melvin Sims, Mr. Kevin Mays, and Mr. Timothy White, all of Americus, Georgia. Dorian, Dango, and Donnie of St. Petersburg, Florida. A host of devoted cousins, close relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. Mr. Arthur Nikitas Whitehead, better known as Nicky, age 50, formerly of Americus, Georgia. Mrs. Ossie Mae Stevens Tyson, age 79, of 111 Apple Blossom Lane, Americus, Georgia, died Saturday, October 22nd at the Phoebe Sumter Medical Center in Americus, Georgia. The funeral service for Mrs. Ossie Mae Stevens Tyson was held Saturday, October 29th in the sanctuary of the Antioch Missionary Baptist Church in Americus, Georgia. Reverend Ricky Cladd, pastor, Reverend George F. Muntz Jr., pastor of Whole Truth Ministry, officiated. The burial followed at the Eastview Cemetery in Americus, Georgia. Survivors include her loving sons, Mr. Richard Tyson and his wife, Mrs. Josephine Tyson of Albany, Georgia, Mr. Terry Tyson of Americus, Georgia, Mr. Tyrone Wilburn of Americus, Georgia, and Mr. Courtney Tyson and his wife, Mrs. Jamiko Tyson of Douglasville, Georgia. Her beloved children she raised as her own, Mr. Willie Laster of Americus, Georgia, Mr. Lee Thomas and his wife, Ms. Barbara Thomas of Ocala, Florida, and Mr. Rodriguez Thomas and his wife, Mrs. Sabrina Thomas of Americus, Georgia. Her loving daughters, Miss Galethea Thomas of Americus, Georgia, Miss Betty Wallace and her husband, Mr. Charlie Wallace of Macon, Georgia, Miss Tracy Thomas of Americus, Georgia, and Mrs. Angela Ramsey and her husband, Mr. Rick Ramsey of Boynton, Florida. A bonus son, Mr. Gerald Battle of Americus, Georgia. One brother-in-law, Mr. Alvin Tyson and his wife, Mrs. Mary Tyson. 17 grandchildren, 4 great-grandchildren, a goddaughter, Miss Edna Mercer, Devoted friends, Miss Maddie Russell, Miss Ira Tullis, Miss Mary Asbury, and Miss Lynette Smith, and a host of other nieces, nephews, cousins. Many sorrowing friends survive. Mrs. Ossie Mae Stevens Tyson, age 79, of 111 Apple Blossom Lane, Americus, Georgia. Again, the family of Mrs. Thelma Carolyn Lango Smith of Cordele, Georgia, the family of Mr. Arthur Nikitas Whitehead of St. Petersburg, Florida, formerly of Americus, Georgia, the family of Mrs. Ossie Mae Stevens Tyson of Americus, Georgia, would like to thank all of their many friends for all of the many kindnesses shown to them during their hours of sorrow and bereavement during the past week. May God bless each of you is their prayer. The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors of Cordele and Vienna were in charge of these arrangements during the past week. And now, it is certainly with the deepest regret that we make the following announcements. United States Army veteran Mr. Theodore Roosevelt Talbert, age 78, of 610 West 28th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Thursday, October 27th at the Crisp Regional Hospital in Cordele, Georgia. Survivors include his loving and devoted children, Mrs. Larita Cooper and her husband, Mr. Curtis Cooper, and Miss Avius Bolden and her husband, Deacon Carey Bolden, all of Vienna, Georgia, and Mr. Michael McCrae of Cordele, Georgia. 11 grandchildren, 4 great-grandchildren, a loving and devoted sister, Mrs. Barbara Walker, and her husband, Mr. Lonnie Walker of Cordele, Georgia. His aunts, Mother Theron Jones, Mrs. Dorothy Talbert, and Ms. Kathleen Talbert, all of Cordele, Georgia, and Ms. Nettie Merriweather of Washington, Georgia, and Ms. Jimmy Sorrow of Jacksonville, Florida. His niece and nephew, Mr. DeMarcus Talbert and his wife, Miss Jessica Talbert of Kathleen, Georgia, and Miss Kishara Walker of Cordele, Georgia. A host of cousins, other relatives, and many, many sorrowing friends survive. United States Army veteran Mr. Theodore Roosevelt Talbert, age 78, of 610 West 28th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for United States Army veteran Mr. Theodore Roosevelt Talbert will be held Saturday, November 5th at 10 o'clock a.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home, Porter-Cashire in Cordele, Georgia. His beloved cousin, Reverend Eddie Talbert, will officiate. The burial with military honors will follow at Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. The public walk-up visitation will be Friday, November 4th from 1 until 5 o'clock p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. Mr. Harvey Dwight Smith, age 71, of 304 West 14th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia, died Tuesday, October 25th in Miami, Florida. Survivors include his loving sisters, Miss Gilda Smith, Miss Clara Dixon and her husband, Mr. Floyd Dixon, Miss Shanithia Smith, and Miss Lakeitha Whitehead, all of Cordele, Georgia. His beloved brothers, Mr. Lovett Smith of Cordele, Georgia, Mr. George Smith and his wife, Miss Colette Smith, and Mr. Ben Smith and his wife, Miss Doretha Smith, all of Miami, Florida. A host of nieces and nephews, many cousins, Other relatives and many sorrowing friends survive Mr. Harvey Dwight Smith, age 71, of 304 West 14th Avenue, Cordele, Georgia. The funeral service for Mr. Harvey Dwight Smith will be held Saturday, November 5th at 1 p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home, Port-au-Cachere in Cordele, Georgia. The burial will follow at the Bethel Cemetery in Cordele, Georgia. The public walk-up visitation will be Friday, November 4th from 1 until 5 o'clock p.m. at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. The J.W. Williams Funeral Directors of Cordele and Vienna are in charge of these arrangements during this week. Friends, that concludes our funeral announcements for today. As always at this time, we would like to remind you in regards to advanced funeral planning that's available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. If you have questions or concerns in regards to advanced funeral planning, we invite you to give us a call, and we'll be so happy to set up a time to sit down and talk with you and answer any questions that you might have concerning advanced funeral planning. We'd also like to remind you that whole life insurance is available at the J.W. Williams Funeral Home. We have a licensed insurance agent on staff, so if you have any questions in regards to insurance or advanced funeral planning, please give us a call, and we'll be so happy to sit down and discuss and answer any questions that you might have concerning advanced funeral planning and whole life insurance. And now for our announcements. The Friendship Baptist Church of Findlay, Georgia will celebrate the 12th anniversary of its pastor, Reverend Joseph Atkins, on Sunday, November 13th at 11 o'clock a.m. Everyone has a cordial invitation to attend. Sister Inez Johnson is the secretary. Reverend Joseph Atkins is the pastor. The Greater Mars Tabernacle Baptist Church invites everyone to worship with them today, Sunday, during their morning worship hour at 9 o'clock a.m. You may join them via Facebook Live beginning at 9 a.m. You may join them on Tuesday for midday prayer conference at 12 o'clock noon. Thursday, prayer meeting and Bible study is held at 6 o'clock p.m. The call-in number for the conference call is 229-329-7611. Deacon Arthur L. Parker is the chairman of deacons. Reverend Dr. K.M. Williams is the pastor. The St. King Missionary Baptist Church invites everyone to worship with them during this morning worship service, which begins at 10:15 a.m. Reverend Woody Burnham is the pastor. The Mount Zion First African Baptist Church conference call schedule is as follows. Sunday morning at 10 a.m. prayer, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 12 o'clock noon. Bible study is held each Wednesday at 5 o'clock p.m. The call-in number is 339-209-6419. Deacon Joe Wedges is chairman of deacons. Reverend Dr. Dan James III is the pastor. You have a cordial invitation to worship with the Gethsemane Baptist Church this morning. The worship service begins at 10:30 a.m. Mother Mary Butler is the church mother. Deacon Johnny Wilson is the chairman of deacons. Reverend Cecil Straughter is the pastor. The New Oak Grove Baptist Church invites everyone to worship with them each Sunday. Sunday school begins at 9:15 a.m. Worship service is held at 10 o'clock a.m. Face covering is required. Deacon Alonzo Jones is the chairman of deacons. Reverend W.W. Wilson is the pastor. The McAfee Grove Baptist Church, Highway 19, Leesburg, invites everyone to worship with them during their family night services Tuesday at 7 o'clock p.m., small class study Thursdays at 7 p.m., Sunday morning worship at 9 a.m. You may join them by calling 425-436-6341. The access code is 708058. Reverend Dr. Robert L. Morgan Sr. is the pastor. The New Provisor Baptist Church invites everyone to their three-night revival, which will begin on November 2nd and continue through November 4th at 7 p.m. each night. Reverend Willard Weston will be the guest revivalist. Everyone has a cordial invitation to attend. Reverend Donnie R. Hall Sr. is the pastor. The Wilcox Head Start is offering free child development services for eligible families with children between the ages of 3 and 5. For more information, please contact Mrs. Donna Jenkins at 229-365-2341 or 478-922-4464. A COVID vaccines and voter education event hosted by the Allen Temple AME Church of Cordele will be on Friday, November 4th from 11 a.m. until 2 o'clock p.m. CORE, Community Organized Relief Efforts, will provide COVID-19 vaccinations and boosters and will also provide a $100 gift card incentive for anyone taking the vaccinations and boosters. Refreshments will be provided by American Legion Post 542, Area Sorors of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated, and the Allen Temple AME Church. For more information, please call Dr. Queen H. Brown at 229-669-2948. Again, that number is 229-669-2948. Dr. Queen H. Brown, Volunteer Coordinator, Reverend Sandra Rivers is the pastor. And again, we would like to remind you of all the upcoming events that are coming up in regards to our local elections that are coming up. We do ask that as you are preparing for these different events that you will bear in mind that this is a very important election season that we are in, and we ask that you will make every effort to make sure you get out and cast your vote. This is a very crucial time. We would like to remind you that yesterday was the last day for Saturday voting, but you do have an opportunity to vote. The last day, this is the final week that you may early vote. Polls open here in Cordele at 8 a.m. and they close at 6 p.m. So you have the opportunity to get out and cast your vote to make sure that you are counted in the upcoming elections. We also like to remind all of you in other areas to please check with your local areas to see what days you are able to cast your votes and to please get out and make sure you take advantage of this opportunity that we have to vote in this upcoming election. Again, this is a very important election. All votes count. If you have not taken advantage of this time to vote, please do so. And we also remind you that as you're preparing to go to the poll to vote, please take someone else with you. Encourage them to come and go with you to vote, that you may do it, and those of your individual families. We also remind you too that if you have not gotten a copy of the upcoming ballot and you would like to look at the ballot before, we invite you to stop by the J.W. Williams Funeral Home and we will get you a copy of the ballot so that you will have an opportunity to look at the ballot before you go and take the chance and take the opportunity to get out and vote. We'd also like to remind you your vote is more important than ever before. And on Tuesday, November the 8th, we invite you to get out and vote. With that in mind, the Friendship Baptist Church in DeSoto, Georgia, invites one and all to come out today, which is the fifth Sunday today, October 30th, following the 11 o'clock Friendship Baptist Association Union meeting, there will be a 15-minute power talk concerning the election, its processes, the changes, laws, and the different candidates for the state of Georgia, United States Senate, and other local races. The candidates' platforms, how you are affected, and the various referendums on county ballots will be up for discussion. First-hand knowledge subjects will be there to share with you. We do hope and invite everyone to come out. Again, that's this morning following the Friendship Baptist Church Association Union meeting today, 5th Sunday, October 30th. The Friendship Baptist Church located in on Highway 195 South in DeSoto invites you to come out for this very powerful power talk, where there will be a 15-minute power talk, and they will share with you the various things that are going on and answer any questions that they might be able to answer concerning the upcoming elections. That concludes all of our announcements for today. And now for dedications. Our first selection this morning is dedicated in love and memory of Miss Cornelia Jackson, who departed this life October 21st, 2008. Dedication requested by her children, Jacqueline, Quincy, Dorothy, Barbara, Betty June, and Ray. All of her grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and the entire family, as well as the members of the Shady Grove Baptist Church, where she served so faithfully during her lifetime. Gone, but not forgotten. In love and memory of Mrs. Dorothy Woodson, who would have celebrated her birthday on October 23rd. Dedication requested by her daughter, Sister Deborah Cobb, her son, Mr. James Crane, her grandchildren, great-grandchildren, all of the members of the Gethsemane Baptist Church, where she served so faithfully for many years during her lifetime. Gone but not forgotten. In love and memory of Mr. Leonard Patrick Jr., who departed this life October 30th, 2015. Dedication requested by the Patrick and Chanel family. In love and memory of Mrs. Patricia Talbert Warren, who departed this life November 1st, 2011. Dedication requested by her children, grandchildren, her mother, Mrs. Juanita Talbert, her brothers, and the entire Talbert and Warren family. In love and memory of Mother Carrie Lee Porter, who departed this life November 2nd, 2015. Dedication requested by her children, grandchildren, the entire family, and all of the members of the Greater Mars Tabernacle Baptist Church, where she served so faithfully during her lifetime. Mother Carrie Lee Porter, gone but not forgotten. In love and memory of Mrs. Elizabeth Fletcher Brown, who would have celebrated her birthday on November 3rd. Dedication requested by her mother, Mrs. Minnie Fletcher, and the entire family. Precious memories linger still. Happy birthday to Mr. Frederick Hardiman, who celebrated his birthday on Friday, November 28th. Dedication requested by his wife, his children, and the entire family. Happy birthday to Brother Bryce Harvey, who celebrated his birthday on Friday, October 28th. Dedication requested by his mother, Miss Geraldine Harvey, his sister, the entire family, and all the members of the Gethsemane Baptist Church. Happy birthday, Brother Harvey. Happy birthday to Mr. Justin Corbin, who's celebrating his birthday today, October 30th. Dedication requested by the entire family. This selection this morning is also being dedicated to Miss Cynthia Pollock and family, Mr. and Mrs. Gregory Peterson and family, Mr. and Mrs. Lee Johnson and family, Mother Thelma Porter and family, Mr. and Mrs. James Bleach and family, Mrs. Vanessa Beal and family, Miss Mary Perry and family, Stuart and Mrs. Wilman Barrett and family, Stuart Rubilee Barrett and family, Miss Jackie Ridley and family, Mr. and Mrs. Emmanuel Thompson and family, Miss Tamika Lawrence and family, Deacon and Mrs. Donna Talbert and family. We dedicate this selection this morning to all of our friends who are joining us via Facebook Live this morning. We thank you for tuning in and sharing with us. Our first selection this morning is dedicated to each of you.